All right, it's still a good morning. Today it's not too cold as it was yesterday, but still you need to carry something heavy with you because the weather doesn't seem to be that friendly either. Now, into the coffee court. As we head into the coffee court today, our discussions are pretty much going to look at banking. The banking sector in Uganda. Well, the banking sector in Uganda has been dominated for the last few years, dominated by commercial banks, private commercial banks, and a few of those that are actually government aided. Now, during the long run, we've seen different banks providing loan options for different users, and pretty much business people have been going in out there for these loans. Some have rushed out of these banks because, accordingly, these loans, these particular banks have high interest rates. And now, this coffee court takes us to Islamic banking, or what you could call the non-interest banking. Is it time Uganda's business community embraced the non-interest banking, or the Islamic banking, as it is called Islamic banking, and it follows the principles of the Sharia law? But however, as you look at it in this way, it is known as what people normally, those under this type of banking, call it the non-interest banking. Why is it called non-interest? This and more of the conversations are in this coffee court this morning.
Jerome Solunko, thank you very much and welcome to the coffee court, where we digest matters of national economy. And of course, this time around, we'll be digesting the performance of the Islamic banking in Uganda, and I'm joined by the director in charge of Kampala campus, Kampala International University campus, Dr. Twaha Ahmed. Doctor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and good evening, our viewers.
First and foremost, what is Islamic banking?
Well, Islamic banking is a system of banking which follows the Islamic principles in a very simple way. And these Islamic principles, definitely for the religion of Islam, they are derived from Sharia. That is why sometimes you will hear it is called Sharia compliant banking or Islamic banking, or some other people even call it other names. Like in Turkey, they actually don't use the name Islamic, they call it participatory banking. So it is really a comprehensive method of banking which is following in a very strict manner the principles that are guided from Islam.
Okay. So how is this different from the other banking sectors in Uganda?
Yeah, the other system of banking, we usually call it conventional, system of banking. The most dominant actually is the system of banking which is following the Western economic framework.
Okay.
And that Western economic framework basically has coined banking to revolve fundamentally around the concept of interest rates.
Okay.
If you don't have interest rates, you don't have conventional banking, because you go to the bank, as we all know it today, you give them a collateral security and tell them, give me 20 million shillings. They give it to you at a rate of interest, which is being called here cost of capital, or that is the gain to the owners of that particular capital. Then you go and do whatever you are doing, you pay back the principal and the interest. That's the conventional way of banking.
Okay.
Islamic banking goes exactly against that, because interest rate, which is technically called riba in Islam, is prohibited. So if you want to now produce or to introduce a method of banking which does not use interest rate, then you have got to bring the alternative method of how money will be made by the banking sector, but also how the customers will be able to access without paying interest rates. So the Islamic banking system does exactly that. It is the real opposite of what the convention is doing.
So how do you survive as a bank if you never charge any interest rates? How do you survive as a bank?
This is how it goes. The Islamic banking system recognizes that the banks are business entities. They are really not charities, all right?
It's a business entity.
Therefore, by being business, the Islamic model includes the bank into the business practice. In other words, let me start from the conventional, maybe to make a difference clear. In the conventional system, all right, the bank doesn't participate in the business. If you are an investor, you simply come, give them collateral, they give you money, you go to the business, all right? You want to build, you want to import, you want to do whatever else, you want to go into agriculture, they don't care as a conventional system, all right? So they give you money, you bring back money with interest. Now, the Islamic system says, no, we are going actually to do business together, all right? So the bank is part and parcel of the business. It is not actually something that is sitting at the edge and leaving you to go and tussle it out on your own. So the Islamic banking model introduces different modes of financing in which you and the bank are partners, or you and the bank are participating in some kind of trade together.
Someone is still asking, because you said a bank exists to make business.
Exactly.
So you're saying Islamic banking is not a profit-making business. It
is actually profit-making.
So how do you make profits without?
Okay, so we now all know how trade is done, all right? How do you do trade? For example, if I wanted to go to China and buy merchandise, all right? I will go and buy at whatever cost, transfer it to Uganda, and then put on this particular cost additional monies. For example, I'll add the transport cost, I'll add the taxes, and I'll put a markup. So if I bought a dress at 30,000, I'll come to Uganda and sell it at 70 or 50, if that is what makes sense for me. That is how to do business. So the Islamic bank will exactly do that. It will ask you, what do you want to do? I want to go and trade. So you buy things at a given cost, and then it is known these things are going to be sold at this particular cost. So the Islamic bank participating with you in that particular trading activity will put a markup, but in real trade, not on money. So the difference here is that the conventional bank simply puts a markup on money, but the Islamic bank will put a markup on a real trade activity. Because you see in the Quran, this is actually maybe the genesis of things. The Quran, in the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited interest rates, he says interest rates, or riba, which we call riba in the Islamic terminology, is prohibited, but trade is allowed. That means if you really want to be able to participate in the financial sector, you are going to come with a trading model.
So is this a religious banking system, if I may put it that way?
Not necessarily.
Or it attracts whether you're Muslim?
It is open to everybody. But it has to comply with that particular principle. That's exactly why we are saying that it is a banking system which complies with Islamic principles.
You've put it right in your preamble that it has attracted a number of investors. Talk to us how this banking system is able to attract investors without the interest rates.
Yeah, let me tell you, Fred, you know it. Today, the traders, you have heard them many, many times, all right? Literally crying because of interest rates. The interest rates are choking businesses. Why? Because the bank doesn't care about how you are performing in the real business world. They simply tell you, okay, you come, you have 100 million, take it, bring back 135 million. And with very, very stringent, time limits. Every time the time increases, they increase the interest rates. So eventually people get a lot of problems with interest rates. Now, the Islamic banking system is welcome to everybody because it does not put you under the pressure of interest rates. It is profit and loss sharing to the best of the interest of every investor. If we go into an investment project together, we make money, we share. We make loss, we share the loss. Now, what is the best deal more than that? If you are an investor, what better deal would you go for? Do you like the person who is going to tell you, I don't care?
I would want a bank that gives me interest if I was an investor.
Why would you like to take interest rate?
Because this is business.
Yeah, I'm talking about the bank giving you money as an investor. The bank which asks you, we don't care what you have got from the field. All we need is give us back our principal and interest rates. And then you have got another one who says, no, come, I'm going to give you financing. If we make profit, we both share the profit. If we make loss, it is a loss to both of us. Who gives you a better deal?
So both partners carry money. I am now prompted to ask, what extent has this succeeded? Is it a successful banking system?
It is a success story around the world.
At what extent?
It is really a success story because if you go to the countries of the Arab world, they are basically transforming their banking system into the Islamic. If you go to countries like Southeast Asia, countries of Malaysia, Indonesia, and all those countries in the region, they have already moved more than 30% Islamic. If you come to other international business centers, even in the Western world, in the US, in UK, they are already opened up to Islamic banking, and big-time projects are being funded by Islamic banking system. So, to take you back to the question where you asked, is this a religious banking system? No, because it can be used by everybody. Religious people and non-religious people, they can all use it. What is required is compliance, not faith.
The examples you're giving seem to be emanating from Islamic countries. I have not heard you talk about a country which is not Islamic in nature.
I have talked about UK. UK is not a Muslim country, even if you go to the US. And many other countries in Europe, they have actually started using and accepting Islamic banking. In some of them, they are even teaching it in universities, all right? You go to the United Kingdom, they are already giving accredited qualifications in Islamic bank and finance coming from the United Kingdom.
Is that justified enough to show that it has worked?
The point is, it is not that it has worked 100% because the entire world has not converted to Islamic banking. Maybe it doesn't have to convert. It will just be working as a side opportunity, as a side alternative. There are so many things that work side by side. You understand? You can have this or that, depending, because you see the world requires alternatives. You cannot say we are going to stick ourselves to one particular thing. All right? In politics, people want alternatives. That's why they have got multi-parties. You either go into this one, you go to the other one, the one which best represents your aspirations. So there are people who are saying, for us, we want the Islamic model. And they go for the Islamic model. So there are others who say, we want the conventional model. So make the alternatives open for everybody, and then life goes on.
So let's now measure the success now back to Uganda. The examples you've given are beyond Uganda. Yes. So let's now measure the success of the Islamic banking here in your country, in my country, in our country.
Yeah, in our country, I think we are still marching towards the system. Because what happened quite a number of years that have passed is that there were legal reforms which needed to be done, because within the law of financial institutions in Uganda, there were some prohibitions which would not make it possible to operationalize Islamic banking in Uganda. For example, one of them which is very, very easy to understand is this. In the conventional system, a bank is not allowed to own assets. All right?
In the conventional system?
Yes, you are not allowed. A bank cannot say, we are buying and accumulating assets on beaches, in the real estate, and so on and so forth. The bank is supposed to concentrate on its core business. So that is how the law was. Now, if you want to be able to operationalize Islamic banking, the Islamic bank will own assets. Because if I am entering into business with you, it means I am going to actually be an owner of assets. Now, you had to go in the legal framework and change some of those things. That is why, in our case, the the central bank and other players thought that no, don't simply go and start Islamic banking because it will go against the law. Begin with making legal reforms, which was done. All right. 2016, the law was amended to open up for Islamic banking, and the law was actually signed by the president. Regulations to govern the licensing of banks were done. And then at the point where we are supposed now to see investors coming into the banks and then getting the banks licensed to begin operating, then somebody comes up with some technicalities.
So
this is a common thing.
Dr. Kasura, is this system of banking subjected to the same rules and regulations like of other different banks?
No, they can't be the same. Certainly they have to be different because they are working on different platforms. That is why, exactly as I said, you even needed to change the law, financial institutions law, so that you can create opportunity for the alternative model to also be contained within the Islamic system. So, for example, you will find that as an Islamic bank, they will need to have a Sharia board. Other banks don't have to have that. Why do they need a Sharia board? Because the Sharia board has got to look at the compliance issues I am explaining.
That's the contradiction I am talking about, Doctor.
It is not a
You seem to be contradicting with the other banks.
No, they don't have to be the same. This is just like saying, Fred, you go to church, Taha, I go to the mosque. It is not a contradiction. It simply says, you are a Christian, I'm a Muslim. We are all Ugandans, but then everybody has got the freedom to go and do what they want when it comes to faith matters. Similarly, in business, it is not a contradiction at all to have two banking models.
But your system seems to be pushing other banking system out.
No.
If I am a bank, doctor, and I am not interested in the interest,
By the way,
it
is not pushing anything. The present conventional banks, they are at liberty, if they want, to actually open Islamic windows. You can have two in one. You can have the conventional on this side for those who want it. You can have the Islamic on this way for those who want it. So there is absolutely no point of this is pushing the other one. It is just a question of exist with everybody, all right? Have the two models available so that the customers can choose. And I don't understand why somebody should feel threatened that a customer will choose the other model.
Because principles of entrepreneurship thrives on making profit, and this is not an interest-making bank. Which alternative? Why would I adopt this system?
If I was the customer, if I am the person who is looking for financing, I am going to look at two models on the market. I'm going to look at a model which asks me for interest, and I'm going to look for a model which says, no, for me I don't want interest. I want to participate with you, and let us now decide. I mean, leave it to the customer. Let the customer enter the bank and say, I want to go to the Islamic side because I'm much more comfortable. By the way, there are two ways of looking at it. There are some people who will choose the Islamic bank because of faith matters, all right? In Islam, it is haram, as we say it, to take interest. So there are people who will choose to go to Islamic model because their religion doesn't allow them to do that.
But that seems to be that
is one. Okay, that is one model. But there are others who will simply choose it because it is the most efficient. It's the most efficient because you ask business people. I don't know, Fred, whether you have done business and whether you have actually been to the bank.
I am, doctor.
You ask people who have been in the banks and they have taken loans with interest. Why do they make a lot of noise all the time? I have had people in Kasita saying, please, government, intervene. We are dying. The banks are taking us. Why do they ask that if they are very comfortable?
Let me also ask the same question to you with figures and statistics. Talk to us about how many people have embraced this system, and you're sure they've benefited.
I have just talked about the technicality. I didn't finish that particular point, that actually Bank of Uganda, which is the regulator and is supposed to be licensing, has not licensed any bank in Uganda in order to start operating on a commercial basis Islamic banking. And why have they done that? Because as I have had the arguments being thrown around the table, that you see, they cannot license banks because at the central bank level, where they are supposed to have a Sharia advisory council, they don't have experts in their wisdom, they are saying they don't have experts who can sit on that council. Therefore, they are saying, let the Sharia committees be at the commercial banks, and that's fine. But because they are saying we don't have the necessary expertise in Uganda in order to have people competent to sit on the Sharia Council, so we cannot license the banks. And the last time I had the Minister of Finance saying we want to go back and make a legal reform in order to remove the Sharia Council. So when you ask the question of application, you can't apply what has not been licensed.
So how do we say it's been a successful system when we even don't have the necessity?
No, we can measure success.
No.
We can measure success on the basis of what has happened elsewhere. And then we say, as a system, in its own framework, it can work.
Why would I
However, here in Uganda, we are not talking about any successes because we have not up to now allowed it to begin working.
Dr. I'm afraid we are running out of time.
All right, yes,
so
I get you.
What would be your parting shots?
Actually, for me, I want to say to the regulatory system in our country, do not block a working model, because this is a working model. These are simple technical issues. You have heard about the law. People can go to the law court and they defeat a case on technicalities. Have you ever heard about that?
I have.
I think in Uganda what is happening today from the regulatory institutions, there is some effort to defeat this particular system on a technical issue, which I think is not a big deal. They should open the Islamic banking system so that we see who are the people that want to use it. Does it make business sense? Fred, if it doesn't work, it will die. This is a competitive world. If it doesn't work in this country, it will die. So rather than block it, you open it. Let us see whether it really is a meaningless system. If it is meaningless, it will die a natural death, and we don't have to bother about it.
Doctor, thank you for allowing to speak to us and being generous, definitely, with the knowledge. And of course, Joram, the coffee quote for today, that is what we've been able to digest. I hope the viewers out there can now discern which type of system to use. My name is Fred Makuya. Coffee quote, Sonko, over to you for business.
All right, many thanks for that particular insightful discussion, Fred Makuya, on the non-interest banking, that is Islamic banking, that most people from the Islamic side are pushing for, and also most traders who have already benefited from the non-interest banking are already pushing for it. But is the Uganda business community ready for this one? And what are the chances that this will be one of those recognized institutions of banking or means of banking in the country? Since 2016, Islamic banking has been in here. However, the level of implementation on ground is still failing. You never know why. Is the public shunning away from it, or are the commercial banks playing a hard to get for the people to utilize it? But anyway, that is it for the coffee court, and we're heading to a break. After it, we return with more, and we have the SMB on ground, this time discussing the impact of social media on business. Stick around.